Dave's visit to Sid's scrapyard and parts started like any other errand. He needed a replacement ceiling light for his beloved Charlotte Bolt, a car that he had cared for meticulously. It was more than just a car to Dave, it was his pride and joy. As he arrived at the scrapyard, Dave was determined to find the specific part he needed. The sun beat down on the dusty yard filled with piles of discarded metal, worn-out tires, and remnants of vehicles long forgotten. Dave spotted a worker operating a crane, lifting old cars with precision that came from years of experience. He approached the worker and asked if they had a ceiling light for Charlotte Bolt. The worker, preoccupied with his task, motioned for Dave to wait. Dave waited in ignorance, and it was at this moment that the worker with the crane accidentally latched onto Dave's Charlotte Bolt and lifted it into the air. Panic set in as Dave saw his cherished car suspended high above the ground. Frantically, Dave shouted at the worker, trying to make himself heard over the loud machinery.
"Put my car down! Right now!"
Dave shouted. Unfortunately, the worker persisted in his tasks, oblivious to Dave's pleas. Desperate, Dave approached another scrapyard worker, a man named Red, and pleaded for him to radio the worker with the crane to stop and lower his car. Red understood the urgency of the situation, and despite company policy against such calls, he made the radio request. Red's efforts were in vain. The noise from the machinery drowned out the radio message, and the worker with the crane continued to move Dave's car along the conveyor belt. It was only a matter of moments before the Charlotte Bolt would be destroyed beyond repair. Dave's face turned crimson with rage as he watched his beloved car disappear into the jaws of a compactor. His car, meticulously maintained and cherished for years, was now nothing but scrap metal. Enraged and heartbroken, Dave demanded to speak to someone in charge. Red, empathetic to Dave's plight, knew he had to bend the rules to make the call. A higher-up named Mr. Sharp answered the phone and was met with Dave's furious voice.
"You owe me a new car!"
Dave yelled, his anger boiling over. Mr. Sharp, confused by the call, asked for an explanation. Dave recounted the series of events, emphasizing the irreplaceable value of his Charlotte Bolt. But instead of an apology or a resolution, Mr. Sharp laughed and abruptly hung up, leaving Dave seething with anger. Months passed, and Dave's anger and frustration remained. The loss of his cherished car haunted him. He couldn't simply move on from the incident, and the memory of Mr. Sharp's callous laughter fueled his determination. Eventually, Dave found a way to sell all the scrap metal from his beloved Charlotte Bolt, turning it into something valuable once again. But the incident still left a bitter taste in his mouth. One day, as Dave drove by the gates of Sid's scrapyard and parts, the security guard, who had witnessed the transformation of the scrapyard from cluttered chaos to empty space, had the most baffled and terrified look on his face. Dave had sold it all. I'm going to need corporate here," the security guard radioed in. As he drove away from the scrapyard, Dave couldn't help but feel a sense of victory. He had turned the tables on the place that had caused him so much pain. He decided to purchase a new car, one that bore a license plate that read SSP or Claude's. This was a constant reminder of the events that had just unfolded for not only Dave but also for Sid's scrapyard. 20 points for me and negative 50 points for Sid. Dave signs. Typical. As Dave continued driving, he went on about his day with minimal incidents.